know what's going on. I don't know the situation, but there's a need. And I know the Lord will answer.
Amen. Amen.
Israel cried unto the Lord, and he heard. And when he heard, he took action. For the Bible says that he put darkness between Israel and the Egyptians. And not only did he put that darkness, but he covered the Egyptians in the sea, never to be seen again. That problem that had plagued them for so long, they had been in bondage for how many generations, how many years, that problem that was at their heels, the Lord took it and buried it so that it would plague them no more. Like I said, our God is a way maker. He's a God of details. For when you try and work out your situation yourself, there's always inevitably something that's left behind. There's always something that you leave out, and that very thing can come back and plague you. But when the Lord takes care of the work, when you cry out to the Lord and he comes and steps into your situation, he takes care of everything. Every detail, every minute detail that you can't even fathom, he takes care of it, never to be brought up again.
That's right. Amen.
The Lord continued to reiterate what he had done for the children of Israel. He said, I brought you into the land of the Amorites, which dwelt on the other side Jordan. They fought with you, and I gave them into your hand, that ye might possess their land, and I destroyed them from before you. The children of Israel, the Amorites, stood as a hindrance to the children of Israel. There was another roadblock. For see, oftentimes the Lord gives us a promise, but that doesn't mean that the road to get to the promise is an easy one. That doesn't mean that the road to get to the promise is smooth and without hesitation, but oftentimes there are roadblocks that come. There are situations that present themselves en route to the promise and to the blessing, and they present to us an opportunity to take action. The Lord said that he brought them into the land of the Amorites. He himself brought them there. But not only did he bring them there, but he delivered the Amorites into their hand. If the Lord brings you to a situation, he will bring you through it. Sometimes it may mean there's a little struggle. Sometimes that means you may have to pull out your sword and fight. But if the Lord has brought you to a situation, then he will bring you through the situation. But the problem is that so many times we get so encumbered by the situation itself, and we sit down and we, like a little child, we have our pity party for ourselves, and we whine and complain and say, why God, why this, why me, why is the situation, if you promised me this blessing, why am I here in this place?
Right.
The Lord is a faithful God, and if he brings us to a situation, he will bring us through.
That's right.
But as we've talked about so many times before, the way that he brings us through is through obedience. He gives us the directives as to what we need to do. He gives us the instructions on how to make it through the situation. He gives us the opportunity, or the escape route, if you will, to make it through the trial that we face. But once again, we're faced with a choice.
Yes.
For you see, just because the Lord gives you the escape route doesn't mean he's going to drag your hand and lead you down the route.
That's right.
I'm going to say it again. Just because the Lord makes a way of escape doesn't mean he's going to pick you up and drag you down the path.
Right.
But once again, we're presented with a choice. As the Lord continues to recount the works that he's done for the children of Israel, he recounts to them to the time where a situation they may not even known of, because there was Balak, the son of Zippor, this king of Moab, who saw the Israelites and saw their greatness and hated this people and called a prophet to curse them. They were up in the mountains looking down at the children of Israel, and Balak wanted to curse the children of Israel. And so he called Balaam to curse them and to issue curses against them. But the Lord said he would not hearken unto Balaam. Why? Because there was no iniquity found in Israel.
That's right.
There was no iniquity found in Israel. So if there's no iniquity found in Israel, the Lord could not destroy a righteous people.
That's right.
If you are righteous before the Lord, then the Lord cannot destroy you. Let me say that again. If you are righteous before the Lord, he cannot destroy you. So what exactly is righteousness?
That's right.
Because the Bible says that our righteousness is as filthy rags. So righteousness is not something we can achieve on ourselves, but righteousness is full adherence to the word of the Lord.
Right.
If you are following the Lord's commands, if you are following his words and following that which he's commanded to do, then he counts it as righteousness.
Right.
Sometimes we see the men of old, we talk talked about this with Abraham. Sometimes we exalt him as such a great man and a perfect man, but he was a man just like us.
Right.
He was human just like us. He had faults just like us. He lied to save his own skin and was impatient in dealing with the promises of the Lord. But because he was faithful in accomplishing everything the Lord commanded him to do, the Lord counted it as righteousness. In other words, the Lord called him righteous. See, we can't call ourselves righteous.
No way.
Let me say that again. We cannot call ourselves righteous because we don't hold the standard of righteousness.
Right.
But he who holds the standard, he who is righteous,
right.
which is the Lord of God, he alone can call us righteous. And so he understands our frailty. He understands where we're coming from.
Right.
He understands that of ourselves we're not perfect in this flesh.
Right.
But he also understands that if he gives us a commandment and we've done everything we can to follow through,
Right.
he counts it as righteousness. I don't know about you, but it makes me realize how merciful the Lord is. For it's only by his mercy that we're not consumed. For the Bible says that every one of us, every man that's born of a woman has sinned and come short of the glory of God. That means that every last one of us should have been destroyed. It means every last one of us that are here under the sound of my voice this morning should have been cut off.
Right.
But because of the mercy of the Lord, because of his mercy, we are not consumed. He saw that of ourselves we couldn't attain righteousness, we couldn't attain holiness, but yet he made a way. Not because we earned it, not because we deserved it, but because of his great love and mercy for us.
That's right.
And all that he asks in return is that we obey.
That's right.
All that he asks in return from us is obedience to his word.
That's right. Amen.
For the children of Israel, because of their obedience, they were brought into this land. For the Lord had commanded them when they came to the walls of Jericho. He said, listen, now here's what you're going to do. I want you to walk around the walls of Jericho one time for 6 days. And on the 7th day, you're going to walk around 7 times. But in all that you do, keep your mouth shut. Don't say a word. Just walk and come back.
That's right.
Now, as a man of war, Joshua was a man experienced in battle and experienced in strategies of warfare. But I'm sure even for Joshua, this must have seemed like a very strange strategy to take down a city.
Right.
I'm sure even to a man who had seen so many kinds of battles and so many kinds of warfare, even this strategy seemed out of place. But as we said before, Joshua was a man of faith, and he said, well, you know, if the Lord has commanded me to do it, then this is what we're going to do.
That's right.
And so for 6 days, the children of Israel walked around the walls of Jericho. Now you must have imagined, you can only imagine the confusion of the people of Jericho watching them, saying, what on earth are these people doing? These people just walking around, not a word, did not say a word, just faithfully 6 days walking around that wall. They must have said, what's wrong with these people? They must be mad. What are they doing? But on the 7th day, when they walked around that 7th time, there was no confusion about what they were doing, for they had been obedient to the Lord. And when they opened up their mouths and they began to shout because the Lord had given them the city, those walls came down flat and they entered in, and not a man of Israel was lost that day. Why? Because they were obedient to the Lord. I'm telling you, if you want victory in your situation, obey the Lord. It may sound strange, it may seem impossible, it may sound ludicrous at some point, but know that your Lord is a way maker, and all he's asking you is to trust him and to walk in his ways. For it may seem strange to you, but understand that the Lord's ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts so much higher than our thoughts. So if he commands you to do something, there's a reason behind it. You may not understand it, and the Lord's not asking us to understand, but what he's asking us is to obey.
That's right.
Because Israel was obedient, they won the victory in Jericho. And not just in Jericho, but the 33 battles or the 32 battles that pursued afterwards. Israel was victorious. And the Lord begins to recount a few of them. The battle with the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and all the other ites.
Right.
The Lord says, I delivered them into your hand.
That's right.
One thing I want you to notice about this is everything that the Lord has mentioned here up to this point. He says, I delivered them. I did this. For the Lord gave them a command, but it was the Lord that did the work.
That's right.
The Lord gave them a commandment to do thus and thus, but it was the Lord working behind the scenes to accomplish the task. For I dare say that the children of Israel walking around that wall 7 times by themselves couldn't have done much. For those walls were fortified. Those walls had stood for how many centuries before that?